In the beginning. Before there was memory, before in the beginning, everything was the same and the same and the same and the same. And we yearned as one for difference. But we were the same, and everything was the same and the same, the same and the same and the same. In the beginning is how we described it when we first created God. The first time we remembered. The place where memory starts when we relinquish the rigidity of sameness. Memory starts here because the human mind can only remember by the experience of contrast. Before difference, diversity, humankind has no memory. We created God to ease the monotony. This was our first human act of art. We gave God the ultimate responsibility for creating and for all things. That was how we first gave in to the possibility of difference, of diversity, of motion, of collaboration, of flow, letting go the rigidity of sameness. This possibility produced free will, and God said, "This is good." Yes, this was God's first action, to speak, to say, "This is good." And God felt good. And these words and God's emotions of feeling good created motion. And the motion, this motion we call time. And we move for the first time for the sheer effort of imitating God. And God called our motion dance. And our dancing was rhythmic and created the waves on which our voices rode. And the movement of our voices on these waves created music. And the first organic life appeared on the downbeat of a song. We said to each other, we created God, and that gave us possibilities. Possibilities made us move. Movement made us dance. Our dancing gave us music, and music made new life. For the first time, we saw old and we saw new and saw that we were old. So we say to this God, all things old, make them new. And God said, I don't make things new. That's your job. My job is to create difference, diversity. That's the job of God. And we said, we hate difference and diversity. And God replied, then how about just saving use from yourselves? And we said, tacky, tacky, tack. Had we known you were bringing your own agenda to the job, we would have made this a temporary position with a probationary period and possible renewal only in mutual agreement of the parties. God said, too late now. Our job agreement has locked us in forever. We are going to have to tough this one out. So we said, shucks. In that case, we'll need to get you a job description quick, because the next thing you know, you'll be doing anything you darn well please. And God said, I feel a little bit of distrust developing here. What you need to understand is that I do what God does, not what I darn well please. On the way to creating a job description for God, we experienced the first possibility of dissent. At first, we formed a committee, but everyone, now knowing feelings of distrust, wanted to ensure that their opinion had the same prominence as every other. So we became a collective. This process went on for millennia. Everyone was giving their input, making sure details and conceivable eventualities were covered. Then there were changes and discussions and debates and arguments. Not everyone could agree on every single point. People argued over why we even needed God in the first place. Some argued that they could do the same job. On their prodding, a subcommittee was struck to work out a compromise delineating lines of accountability once the God job description was settled. Sometimes people forgot what it was they were trying to do. Some didn't like the way others presented. Some went off and had wars with those who didn't agree with them. And finally, someone said, God has to serve my individual unique needs, or else why would I have a God? And another said, look, we have to get on with it. God needs to get on with the business of being God. And another said, I got my own job description for God. Why don't we all write our own? And so we did. Each and every one. At the end of the process, each person had fashioned God's job description to his or her own liking. And God said, you can make any kind of job description you want. When it comes down to it, I can only do what God does. Nothing more and nothing less. And we laughed and said, we'll see. And that was in the beginning. Lillian Allen. Revolution from the beat. Reggae. The rhythm and the eve and the sway of the beat, the rumblings and the tumblings down, down, to the dreams, to the beat, to the impulse to be free, to the life that spring up in the heat, in the heat, in the pounding dance to be free. To burst open a window, crash upon a door, strip the crust of confinement, seep truth through cracks, through the routing rhythms of the musical tracks. The sound of reggae music came on a wave of patter, patter, of deeply rooted internal chatter, chatter, on wings of rhythm and melodies gone free. The bass drum, the heartbeat, and the Rasta man pong. A bong bong, a bong bong, I beat them drums, man. A bong bong, a bong bong. And the sound all around, and the voice of impulse crafted into life-burning darkness, of light, of days journeying through the night, of rhythm, pulse, wails, and dreams, and determination to be free, of sight, of a vision that ignites, of a musical bam-bam, fling down, bops, get up and stand up, jam, a musical realignments of the planets, a joy and a singing for those on it. Liberation impulse, dig the colonialist grave, crunch of the 60s, button carried through the civil rights flames, spirit of the hippies, signifying new ways, the Black Power 5, the right on jive, women raise banners for their rights, communities organize, and workers struggle for human rights, for human rights, for human rights. With the core of the African self, separated by 500 years, ties blighted and nipped, a continental divide and colonialist lies. But a sip from the bean of the African well, uncork the primal African self, and a whoosh, aha, whoosh, aha, a rhythm let loose, and reggae music found us. It was a pulse in the Caribbean that echoed bright, a voice and a beat squashed determination released, and the wondrous sighs of black people once again rose high from a little piece of rock called Jamaica, where Arawak and Carib bones lie. Came a breath of resistance, of peace, love, and liberation, spread worldwide on the wings of its artists and shaman. The bass and drum pranced like a winded fire, the chicken of a guitar strum. Songs of freedom, of spirit, of love, of redemption. A revolution from the drums, a revolution from the beat, a revolution from the heart, a revolution with the feet, a revolution a revolution, a revolution. The rhythm and the eve and the sway of the beat, the rumblings and the tumblings down, down to the dreams, to the beat, to the impulse to be free, to the life that spring up in the heat, in the heat, in the pounding dance to be free. To burst open a window, crash upon a door, strip the crust of confinement, seep truth through cracks, through the routing rhythms of the musical tracks. The sound of reggae music came on a wave of patter, patter, of deeply rooted internal chatter, chatter, on wings of rhythm and melodies gone free. The bass drum the heart, the bass drum the heartbeat, and the Rasta man pong. A bong bong, a bong bong, a beat them drums, man. A bong bong, a bong bong. And the sound all around, and the voice of impulse crafted into life-burning darkness, of light, of days journeying through the night, of rhythm, pulse, wails, and dreams, and determination to be free, of sight, of a vision that ignites, of a musical bam-bam, fling down, bops, get up and stand up, jam, a musical realignments of the planets, a joy and a singing for those on it. Liberation impulse, dig the colonialist grave, crunch of the 60s, baton carried through the civil rights flames, spirit of the hippies, signifying new ways, the Black Power 5, the right on jive, women raise banners for their rights, communities organize, and workers struggle for human rights, for human rights, for human rights. With the core of the African self, separated by 500 years, ties blighted and nipped, a continental divide, and colonialist lies. But I sip from the bean of the African well, uncork the primal African self, and a whoosh, whoosh, a rhythm let loose, and reggae music found us. Woken and Unbroken. Is it a voice if it speaks? Is it a voice if it creaks? Is it a voice if it lays wayward unbroken? Is it an immigrant thing? Is it a land yearning? Is it blood in the land? Soaking? Woken and unbroken. Woken and unbroken. Is it a restorative thing? Is it a justice redeem in these lands of broken and the stolen? Is it a voice if it's AI? Whose God give it a voice? And must it always speak white? Speak white? White? What of the token word? What of the broken word? What of the broken word? What of the token word? Is it a voice if it speaks? Is it a voice if it creaks? Is it a voice if it lays wayward unbroken? Is it an immigrant thing? A revolutionary rhythm? Is it a land yearning? Is it blood in the land? Soaking, woken, and unbroken. Yeah, it's a voice when it squeaks. Resistance, it speaks. Revolution, it teaches. Woken and unbroken. Woken and unbroken. Language. 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 Language is not just words. Language is not just grammar. Language is not just the English language. Language.